Now, there are different paths to becoming a TPM. First, the general program management roles, which may or may not be technical. You do not always need to have an engineering degree to become a TPM. You can build that domain expertise in various ways. And I have seen many successful TPMs from non technical backgrounds. You can also come from an engineering management or product management into the TPM role. And finally, there are other roles such as software engineering, quality engineering, even new graduates can become TPMs. So, as you can see, there's a lot of variety in the background that TPMs can have, and this actually tells you about the versatility of the role. You may not be technical in nature by, say, being able to code or write a programming language, but you might have a very deep domain expertise. Say, if you come from the automobile background, you understand very clearly the automotive industry and what it takes to build a car. Now, if you pair that with autonomous driving experience and building a software on top of it, you have quite a bit of domain expertise and you're going to build some more, right? But that's the way that you continue to build your expertise. Even building a strong domain expertise in a specific area can really help you gain more of that technical understanding easily. Now, I like to say TPMs also come in many flavors, just like ice cream, and your core skills are utilized differently based on which particular area or role you're in. So, there are a bunch of different TPM archetypes, and here's just four that I wanted to kind of focus on. You can be a generalist TPM who adapt to any domain and leverage your strong program management skills. So you can easily maybe ramp up on a new domain, or you can go from domain to domain very easily because you're maybe covering a lot of breadth, covering the programs where you're working with multiple teams, hundreds of individuals. Maybe you're working with other TPMs who have some of that depth expertise, but really being able to, say, oversee a launch. If you're responsible for launching a big program, like, for example, an Oculus headset, ensuring that all the hardware and the software components are done in time, that's the kind of a generalist role. On the opposite end of that is the specialist role, usually a domain specialist. For example, if you have deep domain knowledge in AI and machine learning. In this case, the deep domain knowledge is important to be effective in managing these programs. For example, if you're developing a component of the Oculus and you're responsible as a TPM, say for the hand controllers, then you need to understand that particular component, how it interacts with the rest of the system, etc. So that's the idea of the domain specialist. And they usually can be more depth focused, which doesn't mean that they don't manage large programs or complex programs, just that the domain is very specifically focused in one area. This is where sometimes developing that specialization can help as well. Now, today there's also a distinction between product TPMs and infrastructure TPMs, or systems TPMs. Sometimes I like to call infrastructure TPMs as systems TPMs. Product TPMs work on products that have end users as their customers, whereas an infrastructure TPM generally may have internal customers. Infrastructure TPMs may be working in a data center, working with servers, networks, so forth, or developer tools, etc. A lot of these roles began as infrastructure roles back in the day, and these areas usually didn't have product management. They were very much focused on the technical requirements, the technical specifications. And then the product TPM role came about to be just to distinguish a little bit on slight nuance of what is required of that TPM, which is product sense, understanding of the product, understanding of the customer itself, understanding of the user experience. And that is where, when product TPMs came about, they were usually working in teams that were developing these external facing products, usually alongside a product manager. Some of the infrastructure TPMs, technical program managers, can also be technical product managers because they are working on the technical requirements. So you may or may not see product managers in this space because the TPM is somewhat playing that role. And that setup works very well in many, many places.